As you guys know, my name's Tom Reed, and I am here today with
Jessi.
Jessi. Jessi, we've talked a little bit in the past, and you know that I upload these videos to YouTube, right?
Yeah.
You cool with that?
Yeah.
Okay. How did you first know about me? Because I know, did we get together through the chats or?
Well, actually, someone had sent me a link to your video for little Monica passing away.
Oh.
And then I just started watching them, and it started a little bit made me feel like I want to be down there still.
Yeah.
And then, the other half of me was reminding myself that I have a good life up here now. So then I decided to get a hold of you that way.
Oh, well, thank you. So from the very beginning now, I want you to tell me how your drug use started.
Well, when I was a teenager, I started getting high with my mom. We smoked weed together. And then from there, I just started experimenting like methadone, and I'd snort Suboxone. And then I went down to my stepdad's house in like 2012, and he was kind of a sick guy. And I met my ex-boyfriend, who's passed away now, and he was snorting heroin. And my mom and me had smoked crack together, and it just was never anything I liked. I thought, I'll never smoke crack. I'll never be like that. And then when I met him and he started snorting heroin, and then we started snorting it together. And then after that, we moved to Detroit. And
Where were you living when you were doing that then?
in Dearborn.
You were?
Yep, and we had our own apartment in Dearborn, and then we lost it. We didn't pay the rent, probably maybe one time we paid it. His dad kept giving us money for rent, and we kept using it on drugs. And I was working at BT's, which is a strip club down there, and I was meeting guys that way, and they would pick me up and take me to a hotel, and then give me money for doing stuff with them. One guy wanted to do anal for $250, and I'd come home and be like, look, I got this money, and not tell him where I got it, but he had to have known what was going on.
What were you doing at BT's?
I was dancing, and then they'd do extras too, which wasn't really prepared for that.
When I used to go to BT's.
Yeah.
And they were really hell against that. I mean, they were making so much money as a topless bar.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing they wanted was to have the girls get caught up in sex after work.
Right.
Was that going
In the VIP room, they want extras.
Was it going on a lot?
Yeah.
Oh, it was.
Mm-hmm. Every time somebody wanted to go back in the VIP, they'd ask for extras. So
you were how old then?
I was 22, turning 23.
Okay. Now, were you making pretty good money at the time?
Yes, I was. And that's probably why my boyfriend started dating me, because he wanted somebody that was going to support his habit, which I didn't realize that was what was going on at the time.
How long did you dance there then?
I'd say probably like 8 months.
Okay.
And then I just started just getting dope sick because we were using the heroin. And one time I called and told him I needed money to pay for my cab driver, and we drove there and picked up the money and went right to Detroit. I never went to work that day and never went back. So
interesting.
yeah. And then so we had our apartment and we lost it. I got out of jail, and my boyfriend was like, well, I got us a place to stay, and it was a Bando off Palouse and Livernois right next to the sound station. And that's where I started doing full-time dates on the streets. And
how much heroin and crack were you using at the time?
Well, if I could make it, probably $500 each.
No way.
Yeah, and they were real surprised about that when I went to rehab and told them I was doing like 25, 30 packs of heroin a day.
You really were?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the dates, you do how many dates in a day?
As many as would pick me up. I had a few regulars. Yeah. There was a couple guys that maintained staying in touch with me and supported me when I was in jail, and they were good guys, but I mean they were still doing that, picking girls up. So
yeah. Now the relationship with a boyfriend during those times, what do they do? Just put it in the back of their mind, the drugs?
Yeah, it would be like he would be like, I hate you, you're a bitch, and then I'd bring the dope and he'd be like, oh baby, I'm sorry, I love you, I didn't mean that. And so
what would be like an average number of dates you'd have during a regular day?
I'd say like 15 to 20.
Really?
Yeah, and they, then when I'd have my regulars would pick me up, I'd call them and they'd come pick me up. And I don't know, there's one guy that still is on Facebook and looks at my stories on my day.
Oh, he does?
Yeah. I think about calling him, but then I'm like, well, it's past that. I'm past that point. But
what how does a relationship with a regular start? I mean, what differentiates them between a regular and just different guys? I mean, how does that happen?
They're more friendly, I guess, and they give you more money, and you can call them and they'll pick you up wherever, whenever. And one guy used to bring me to his parents' house, and we'd sit out in his driveway and do the date, and then we'd sit there and just talk for a while. And then the other guy would pick me up and he'd want me to dance for him in his house, and I would come there and dance, and he would videotape it, and then he'd drop me back off wherever I wanted to go.
Now, were you creeped out by most of these guys? No.
A lot of them were creepy. I definitely was picked up by several guys that beat me up and raped me. And a couple times I would be too trusting, and I got taken to a place that I was not expected, like an escort house, and I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't know what I got myself into, and I tried like hell getting myself back to Southwest Detroit.
Really? Mm-hmm. So you were doing escort work too?
Yep, I was, and I did do Backpage for a little while off of West Grand Boulevard. There's an apartment there, and I was at the top floor. They had the whole floor they owned, and they had girls staying there, and they get us Backpage, they set us all up, and then they take us to like Auburn Hills and like all places that weren't Detroit, and to these people's houses. And
so it's sex trafficking.
Yeah, it is.
Did it ever come unglued with that, or did they get? You don't know.
Not while I was there. It didn't come unglued.
And how was the money?
For Backpage, it was a lot better money than working the streets.
It was.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was like $100 an hour.
Okay.
So
on any of those dates during any of that time period, did you ever find yourself in any way attracted to any of these men?
No.
Not once.
No, I mean, there's this guy, this black guy that I was a little bit attracted to, but he had other girls running in and out of his house, and so it was not that kind of toned down the attraction after I found out about that. So.
Gotcha. And so you were down working Michigan Avenue for how long?
For 4.5 years.
Okay. Now, do you know some of the girls that...
Yep, I know Becky, I know Jeannie, I know Allie, I know Ebony, I knew little Monica. There's girls that I wonder about down there. There's like little Brandy, and there was a white girl named Angel. I don't know what happened to her. There was a girl, Brittany. There's another girl who was going by PJ down there, but her name is Jen, and she's doing really good too. Everybody thought she was dead, but she's not dead.
Oh, good. What do you think differentiates someone from like you from like, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, Rebecca? Rebecca just seems that lifestyle's fine with her. I mean, how could you explain the difference?
Well, I'm sure that it's not fine for her. I figure she's just accepted it, I just feel like, you just kind of get stuck in it, and you get addicted to the lifestyle, not as well, just as well as the drugs, so yeah. It's fast paced, and there's a lot that goes into being down there, but you have to do the drugs to do the dates, and do the dates to get the money to do the drugs. So it's just like a vicious circle.
Gotcha.
And I know Ginger too. That's
yeah.
I know her too, but that's not her name. But
yeah, I know it's not. She told me her real name.
Yeah.
I ran into her and her mother at McDonald's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you probably saw the video when Rebecca talked about how the women are treated in general by the businesses. Did you find that to be the same way?
Yes, I did. I'd go into a gas station and they'd look at me like I was going to steal something, and I wouldn't. I'd have money, and one time I went in there to buy something, and I left my belongings in a car that I had just done a date with a guy, and he ran off with all my belongings, and all I had was just the money that he had given me. And that happened to me so many more times than I could even count, getting robbed down there. Oh. And yeah.
What was your experience with the police like down there?
They don't really care. The only time that the police ever come through is if there's somebody dead. And that's the only time, really. I mean, they don't... I did get arrested one time down there, and they were just joking and making like it was just a big joke to them, just arresting me. And they didn't charge me with anything. They just took me to jail.
Gotcha. Do you think it's true that some of the women get solicited by some of the cops?
I think so, yep.
You do?
Yep, I do believe that. Because there's all kind of people that want dates, and, I figure... Even the police do it too.
Yeah. What's your take on the average customer and dates? Are these guys that aren't getting laid at home? What's your your own experience and how these guys get there and why.
I mean, I would figure that's probably the reason. I had a guy that would pick me up kind of regular, and he had a fiance, and probably she didn't like to do the things that he wanted done. So
Gotcha. Would you think that a lot of the women and the sex that they do down there is just different than what they could get without paying for it? I mean, is it like?
I think so. I think probably it's the whole like lure of something that's forbidden,
Mhm.
and it's basically part of that lifestyle. It's an addiction just as much as the drugs are for girls. I feel like going down there and picking up a girl is like like an adrenaline rush for a guy that doesn't get it at home.
Gotcha. Did you see some of the undercover police women down there working Michigan Avenue sometimes?
No, I didn't see that.
Okay, yeah, they got one that's down there every once in a while.
Wow.
And how about on the stings? Did you get nailed on any of those?
No, I didn't actually. I had just left a spot and went to go make some money and came back, and they had busted the door down, and everybody was outside, and there was a couple cops, but they weren't arresting anybody.
Oh, okay. And living down there, was your family always trying to save you, or?
Well, I mean, my mom would bring me up here a couple times, and I would bring heroin with me, and then sometimes I'd be down there, and my mom would tell me, "Oh, I can't come down there because yada yada, whatever the reason was, like my brother or something." And then I'd be walking down the street, and I'd see her knock on the door to a spot, and I would just be like, what are you doing here?" And she's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "I live down here." So, it's just kind of crazy how that was. So I know that my grandparents wanted me out of that situation, but they couldn't do anything that I didn't want to do anyway. So.
And how is your relationship with your mother now?
It's good. Yeah, she's like my best friend. So
Really? And her drug use is?
she's not using it at all.
Oh, good.
She hasn't used since 2017. Me and her both.
Okay. If you were just going to throw something out there on why you think most people do drugs, what's your take on it?
I'd say they're just unhappy with their life, unhappy with whatever their circumstances are. Maybe they had a bad upbringing. Maybe sometimes they had a good upbringing and they just were unhappy. And drugs was an escape. Just a way to get rid of all those thoughts.
Now, the $50,000 question is, you got out of that area and you're alive and you have a baby now and you're in a relationship.
Yep.
How did that happen?
I actually met my baby's father at an NA meeting, and then I wasn't really trying to be with him because I was still trying to be with Mike, who was downstate, and he just kept trying, and finally I said, "Okay, I'll go out to eat with you," and we've been together ever since.
So he was down there and you met him in this meeting. What was he doing down there for work?
So my ex-boyfriend was down there, and I don't know if he was working or not, but my baby's father now actually lived down there but moved up here several years ago.
Oh, okay.
And so he was at a meeting in Tawas, actually.
Oh.
At an NA meeting, and he had just gotten out of rehab, and he seemed like a cool guy, but I didn't really want anything to do with anybody that was trying to keep me from Detroit.
Yeah,
and
now, NA is what exactly?
Narcotics Anonymous.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And I remember crying in the meetings, Tom, like, I don't want to be here. I'd rather be in Detroit, and I don't want to get high, but I do. I want to be down there so bad. And then I had been clean for like 60 days and before I left and went back to Detroit. So.
Oh, okay. And this your boyfriend, I guess. He's older than you.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
He's 48 years old.
Wow. Like older men, huh?
I mean, it just kind of happened that way. It wasn't planned.
Is this his first child?
Yes, it is.
Oh, good. And how's the baby doing?
She's wonderful. Oh my gosh, she's like the best baby. She makes it real easy to want a second one.
Good. How would you describe your life up here then?
It's good. Even when I struggle, I feel like that's age-old saying they say in Narcotics Anonymous that your worst day sober is better than your best day high. That's true, because even when it's bad up here, nothing is as bad as it was down there.
Oh, okay. And you say struggle. Do you got a handle on what causes those days?
I don't know. Sometimes I just start thinking about it, and it just makes me feel like I shouldn't be up here, like I didn't deserve to leave Detroit. And then I start thinking like, man, these girls are still out there getting high, and why can't I get high and have a good life too? But that just doesn't go together. You can't have good things and still get high.
In a bad way, you can understand the camaraderie that even though everybody's down there for not what for what would not be considered good reasons, in a weird twisted way, you're all in it together and it's
Yeah,
fun.
they're family.
It's like that, isn't it? So that would make sense. That's what you missed,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And we've talked before, and there's been occasions where you've had fleeting thoughts of going back down there. It's crazy, isn't it, that
It
you
is
think
crazy.
that way?
It is crazy because I have a beautiful baby girl, and there's nothing that I would want to give up for her.
But you know, I mean, if you look at your actions, I mean, everybody has crazy thoughts.
Yeah,
I think really you've been a long way from getting down there.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. They say, if you relapse in your head, you've already relapsed, but I don't think that's true.
I don't either. No. Up here, would there be a regular source of crack and heroin if you wanted it?
I mean, probably there is, but I don't know where it is.
Oh,
So, I
gotcha.
mean, I would have to go to Detroit to get it anyways.
Yeah. Now you're on a tether.
Yes.
Why?
Because I smoked marijuana on probation,
Uh-huh.
and they want to put me in jail for 120 days. And I said, no way, I have a baby, and she's not even a year old yet. So I paid for the tether.
Oh, how much that costing you?
It costs $280 every 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's expensive, but it's worth it to be home with my girl.
Yeah, right. And you have how much left of that now?
Till February. 120 days, they don't give you good time. So
Oh, they don't.
No.
So why that's on? Is that bothersome?
Not really. Actually, it's almost kind of, I'm used to sleeping with it on,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
when I shower, I have to worry about getting it too wet or anything.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not really a big deal, and I'm allowed to go to I go to substance abuse group every
Yeah.
Thursday,
Okay.
and then I can go to work, which I work right across the street, so it's real easy and convenient for that.
Oh, okay. Now, do they ever call you up and say, "Hey, we're not getting a single for this thing. Where the hell you at?"
No. If it starts vibrating, I call the police right away because I'm worried. I don't want the police to show up here.
Yeah. Why would it vibrate?
If I'm not in my zone.
Oh.
So even if they know where I'm going, it'll
Uh-huh.
vibrate the whole time I'm there.
Oh, well, it will.
Yeah.
So when you go to these support groups, I guess you call them, how's your experience here? Is this